What's up, everybody? Welcome to In Great Company. Today, I have great company for you. And allow him to introduce himself, but I did want to talk a little bit about who he is. He's a great friend. Fun fact, we were kind of prepping for this interview yesterday, and we were talking, and we started just rapping just easily. And I was like, okay, wait, we have to save this. We have to save this. So this is someone that's easily a great conversationalist, a creative, a brother, a thinker. So I'm just so excited to have you two here.
Too kind.
Absolutely.
Every time I talk with you, it's 2 hours.
Easily, right?
Minimum one.
Easily.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Yoni. I am a believer in Christ, a designer, and I don't know what else to say. A friend of Beatty in Great Company.
Yeah. Someone I've done ministry with.
Yes.
Someone that has kind of encouraged me in a lot of different areas that are, in the creative world, a thinker, and just an encourager. So I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
Cool. We can dive right into it.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about with these podcasts is just painting the story of people's lives, people that I admire, people that I'm encouraged by. So in order to do that, you always kind of have to go back to the very beginning. So knowing who you are today and getting a chance to know, I think, what has been 6 years now?
What's
crazy,
20? Let me not put the years out. Let me say.
It's okay.
No, I think since 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
So whatever that is to today. Yeah, 6 years.
So in those years, I know that Yoni, but the Yoni, the childhood Yoni, I'm curious about. I know who you are today, but I'm curious how you got there and how much of your life and your childhood and your upbringing kind of created an influence or impacted you to be who you are today.
Yeah. So, I mean, where should I start?
You can start with childhood. You can start with the stories. We touched a little bit about, you are a creative. You are a thinker. You did take untraditional routes, right?
Yeah.
You did change up some of your ideas as you got older. So just any part of your childhood.
I guess to that point, first, I was born in D.C.
Okay.
Raised
like
in Maryland.
DC or Maryland?
Yeah. Providence Hospital doesn't exist anymore.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been here my whole life, and something my dad always. I have an older brother, and at the time I'm talking about, I didn't have a sister, but I do have a younger sister.
Okay.
She just wasn't around. She wasn't born. So
Okay.
My dad would always tell us that nothing separates us from anybody else. In the sense, he always wanted us to have the best grades. He always wanted us to have A's, and he was like, nothing separates you from anybody else.
What does that mean?
Meaning, the difference between you, he loved Ben Carson. We had a Ben Carson book growing up. The only difference between you and Ben Carson is that he studied and did work. But
that's awesome.
There's nothing that you're missing that he doesn't have. Or anyone in your class, there's nothing that you're missing that they have.
You're capable of doing
of doing anything.
Okay.
Literally anything.
Yeah.
And I think, with that came a bit of a stubbornness and a bit of a pride, good and bad, that I could do anything.
Okay. How is that stubborn?
I think it's stubborn because it's when you think you could do anything, you think you could do anything your way. You know what I'm saying? So it's
I got you.
I didn't think I had to, and I didn't think I had to do a lot of fundamental things. I thought I was able to just get by based on, hey, I'm capable.
Okay.
So I was kind of raised that way. I didn't really try hard at school, but I did well by God's grace.
Mm-hmm.
I actually loved school. I
so
enjoyed
studying
it.
came, or the
I didn't study. That's what I'm talking about.
It came easy to you.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't a big studier.
Do you listen well? How does that work?
I take great notes. I listen well. I think that's something I always enjoy, even when it comes to creativity. I don't consider myself a creative, which is interesting because a lot of people, we talk about that with a lot of people, but I just love learning, and I love kind of understanding things, and that has went well with creativity. But even as a kid, it was just I love to understand things. I love projects in class because you could kind of present things in the way that you understood them. I loved we had a science fair and all that kind of stuff. I enjoyed that stuff.
Yeah, presenting things.
In what was it? 6th grade, that's what it was. We had a fair. You all had to do your own project. So I chose to do what was his name? Michelangelo, about frescoes. I'm a sixth grader.
What do you mean? Like, did you
fresco? So the way they painted the Sistine it's a huge tangent, but we had to do a project for it.
Okay.
And what did I like made this plaster thing, and then I learned to paint on it, and that was part of my presentation. But then I tried to do it in my room. My parents weren't having that. But what I'm saying is, I just liked to understand things and to go out and do them
and develop them.
But the stubbornness is, I didn't have the patience to like fully learn. I just wanted to do.
Okay.
So I've jumped into a lot of things. Like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Without understanding how a lot of it works, which helps.
Yeah.
But you know, you kind of learn the hard way sometimes too. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Bro, I understand.
So that was me growing up. I think I just felt like I could do anything, and my dad encouraged that. My mom did too. So I have very supportive parents, and I think I was very blessed that way. So.
Okay, so let's go. So you go to college.
Mm-hmm.
School's still easy in college?
No, that's when
Is that where it switched up on you?
That's when it switched up. That first semester.
What happened?
What happened was I had no habit. I was vibes.
No study skills. No.
I did not do well with the lack of structure.
Okay.
In high school, it's so structured.
Okay.
That you have to go to class. Like I said,
were you in like regular classes, or did you take like what do they call those?
No.
Like IB classes or anything like that?
In high school, I was IB.
Okay, that's why I asked that question, because everybody else was not structured. IB students were structured.
Yeah, no. Yeah, IB was no joke, man.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't have said high school was structured for me.
Yeah.
we know we're on the same page now. IB, yes.
It was my high school experience was very structured.
Yeah.
When I got to college, it's a room of 300 people. You don't have to go to class.
True.
You could watch a lecture online. I saw the lecture online. I said, boy. I mean, when I was in high school, I wasn't allowed to do Monday through Friday. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't do anything. I know that sounds like silly to say.
That's how I grew up too, though.
But yeah, that's the way I grew up. So
you
get to college, you're on your own, and it's like, you telling me I don't have to go to class. I could watch TV.
Did you fail your first class? Your first?
I know I didn't fail. I just got a lot of C's.
You knew better than that.
Yeah, I got a lot. Yeah, but I could do better, and I knew that. This is off camera, but Loza, ask her. We were in a class together. Ask her how many times I showed to class.
We're keeping it. We're not taking it.
It was bad. But anyways, I think that first semester was a shock. Mm-hmm. I did well my second semester. I think I kind of learned, but I didn't do too well without the structure. Okay. Because, I can pick up on information if I'm there, but if I'm not there, of course. And then I always, like I said, I had this kind of pride, like, I could figure it out. So I would just cram before an exam, and it would be the worst thing because I felt like I knew the material, but I wasn't performing. Yeah. And I had to reconcile, like, okay, you're not performing because
you could pass a test, but you really don't know the content.
No, it's the opposite. I knew the content, but I couldn't pass a test because it was all jam-packed at that last minute. So I'd be in the review session like, I could talk about this, but, in college, it's more than knowing the material. You got to know the professor. You got to look at past exams. People were up on things. I just thought you show up to class, you do good, and you go home.
What was your major?
Biology. Uh-huh. Neurobiology.
Okay, sir. You were you're a neurobiology student and not showing up to class.
No. It sounds dumb.
Very interesting.
It was dumb.
It was interesting.
But, yeah.
Okay, so then what happens? You continue, you get it together.
I got it together. Someone got it together. I started getting involved at school with organizations and stuff. I think that just took time away from school, but I found a groove. And I stuck with biology for the reason that I knew I couldn't pivot out of it. Mm-hmm. Like I was supposed to go into medicine. But that was like the whole thing with my family. Growing up, my dad was a big proponent of medicine, and we would talk about it often. And there was no option. Not that he was forcing me, but it was more so like
it's a respected field.
There was nothing better. Yeah. And we would discuss it, and it would be like a debate.
And you were on the same page with him.
No.
Oh,
I would say, well, what about being this?
Yeah.
And we'd have a debate about it, and he would show me like, okay, job security is not as good, pay is not as good. You have international, you could go anywhere, and so we would debate about it. Like,
but he would win the argument, or you give
every
up?
time. Every time.
You would give up, or he would win the argument?
No, he'd win the argument. I mean, what can I?
Well, what did you know?
He's not wrong. So, I told myself I'll give myself 2 years because that's how long you have to pick a major.
Yes.
And I was like, if I can't think of anything else, then I'm gonna do it. But every time I tried to think of something else, I thought back to those arguments. I was like, how could I make this decision knowing that, it's not as good? Well, from what I understood, not as good. Emphasis on from what I understood. So, anyways, I declared the major, and that was the reasoning. It was like, all right, I'm in this, and I can't pivot.
Yeah.
This is it. I'm going to lock myself in. And then that year, I met this guy named Dr. Randall. It would be a long story to describe how I met him, but I met him.
What year is this?
My junior year.
Okay.
My third year. And basically, he asked me to help him with an event he was trying to put together. So I went to his office, and the first time I went to his office, there was a speaker he had invited to speak at the school that was there. So I was like, I peeked in the door. I was like, oh, I'll come back. They're like, no, come in. So I was like, okay. So he introduced me. So
why does this feel like a movie? I don't know. I feel like I just saw a movie.
I don't know,
just
man.
That's
just what happened.
Okay.
That's just what happened.
Okay.
And shook the guy's hand. He looks at me. He goes, what are you studying? And I was like, biology. He said, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. I want to be in sports medicine.
Okay.
He said, why do you want to do that? I was like, I want to work with sports teams. I like sports. It would be fun to, kind of marry the sports with the medicine, put them together. So he's like, okay, that sounds really great. He's like, have you ever shadowed an orthopedic surgeon? I was like, no. He said, have you ever spoke with an orthopedic surgeon? I said, no. He said, you ever Googled what an orthopedic surgeon does?
Nope.
7 days a week? Nope. He said,
but it still sounds cool.
Yeah, he's like, so you want to do this for the rest of your life, but
Lord.
you didn't care enough to even Google what they do? And I was like, I guess so.
This is literally every diaspora kid that came.
Yeah. So he invited me to his talk, and I went, and I was his guinea pig the whole event. He was like, I was talking to this guy, and the whole event. He just picked on me. But from then on, Dr. Randall never let it go, and he just kept pushing me. Like, he was telling me about kids who switched. He had one person he was mentoring that became an MMA fighter or something. I was like, why are you telling me this? Brother, no.
Does not sound like success.
Like, I had just locked myself, intentionally locked myself in the major. And
is that a formal thing to lock yourself? What does that mean?
No. Meaning, like,
you made the decision.
Biology was me telling myself I'm not doing anything else.
Gotcha.
Dr. Randall never let it go. And so I finished my major. I graduated. But I think by my senior year, I decided we switching it up. And I didn't know what I was switching. I mean, I knew at the time. I thought I knew what I was switching up to. But, now you ask me now, I'm not doing what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in music.
You switched to music?
No, I wanted to be in music. I wanted to be like a manager.
Okay.
I wanted to be anyways, I don't know. That's going to
It's
be a whole nother story.
Cool.
So I switched. And my dad, he told me one thing you're going to have to do, because he became a mentor to me, So I told him a lot of personal things. He told me something you're going to have to do for yourself is tell your dad that you're switching. Because in conversation, everything I'm saying is like, oh, my dad this, my dad that. He's like, you have to get over my dad, you have to. And that's one point I want to say. I think the biggest limiting thing is relating your circumstances to other people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, because my parents this, or because, and I got caught up in a lot of that. I mean, I still do, like, because, things didn't go my way here. You start blaming things, and, like, okay, there's a place where people had impact on your decisions and circumstances had impact on your decisions, but ultimately it's you. And you have to take ownership. So, I've been learning that lesson ever since, but at that time he was challenging me to learn that lesson for that point. So he's like, you gotta tell your dad. And I was like, so you don't understand. I was like, you American.
You tell my dad.
You are American. You do not understand. But I understood I had to do it.
Yeah.
And so not that long after that, though, my dad, he would visit once a month. So he visited this day, and he came over to my place on campus, and he sat me down. We went, what did we do? I don't know what we did, but we ended up at my place on campus, and then he sat down. He said, let me talk to you. You know, I'm like, I gotta say something. But he's talking, and he goes, you know, Yoni, you have to, I forgot how he said it, but he gave this metaphor of a boat in the middle of the ocean. He said, to have no plan is to be a boat in the middle of the ocean with no sail. In that situation, the boat could be going one way until the current and the wind changes. It would go another way, and it would be moving, but it wouldn't be going anywhere. And then he said, you have to have a sail. You have to have a destination. And that's why it's important to have a plan, because if you have a sail, no matter what's happening, you can always move in the direction that you're setting. Mm-hmm. And so he told me for the first time ever, he said, I don't care what you do. It doesn't have to be medicine.
Wow.
But you need to have a sail. And I was like,
you hadn't even said nothing to him yet.
I didn't say anything, man. I was like,
this man came with a metaphor.
I was like, salute, job done. We going to Tony Randall or Dr. Randall. Like,
he said, Daddy, I got a plan.
Yeah, you know what? I got to confess, man. I told him that I told my dad, but my dad told me. But I never told him that part. But
I love that.
That to me was like a blessing to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. So
that's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
It sticks out.
It a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it applies to many things. It's not just anything in life that requires direction, which is most things.
Yeah.
You need to be mindful of what that is.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So now, and I keep saying the creative because I genuinely do think that you think differently. And for me, it's like, okay, I have a group of friends, and from the group of friends, not everybody thinks the same. And Yoni stands out because Yoni thinks about building and developing, where other people are kind of doing a traditional route of kind of just following the steps of other people, or like, there's like these I guess these traditional routes that people take, whereas other people are like, no, I actually want to develop something that's never been developed before. I want to make a change in some issue that I have or a problem that I see. So I think that's why I keep saying that word. I wish there was like a different way maybe to say it, but that's why I keep saying that. So I guess for you, what's motivating you now? What are you working on? What are you thinking about in regards to life? So high level. Jeez. Even after I said it, I was like, dang, good luck.
No, it's fine. I was taking piece by piece.
That's cool.
I like the way you're defining creative.
Okay.
I think that makes more sense to me. I think usually when people say you're creative, to me, it's like you're some artist and I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, there's like a line.
Yeah.
But I never related to what I do as an artist. It's
Yeah.
more of like there's something in my mind and I'm trying to express it. And I just thought that this was a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And any skill that I have was not out of like, I don't know. I think I'm going to get lost trying to explain that. But it's out of a desire to communicate something.
Yeah.
And it's not a skill. And I think anytime I've talked to people or even helped anybody in a creative anything, it was just more so like, what are you trying to say? Mm-hmm. And then let's figure out ways to say what you're trying to say. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So to your point, like, okay, if creative is to be building something and to be building something that doesn't exist, building something that's new, that makes more sense to me. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. Your question was, what was
forgot.
it? I did. I just want to make that point.
No, because I think I'm just thinking like, so I'll be honest, and this might just be because of my perspective, but it's like being a doctor is a traditional route. Mm-hmm. You are following the steps of many. There is a schooling, there's an education, there's a test you take, and there's a job that you do, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas here, it seems like, and that's like with law or anything academia or anything, honestly, even like IT even feels like that, where it's like I am following certain traditions. Whereas here, it feels like, no, there is a problem that needs to be solved, or there is an item that doesn't exist. There's an idea that I have that I'm going to make come to life that hasn't been done before. Mm-hmm. Now, there's been many painters before. Every time somebody becomes a painter doesn't mean that he's the first painter, but he is now painting something that didn't exist.
Yes.
Right? So I think that's how I'm defining it. And I feel like that's a less traditional route. And this might just be my definitions, but
no.
I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. To that, I started off very free, meaning, okay, back to the story I was telling.
Yeah.
I bought myself a year. Said, hey, give me 1 year, and then I'll take the MCAT, and I'll be on my way. If I don't figure it out, I'll be on my way.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by free. I mean, I was
But what does that even? So you take a year. So I've never done this, right? So for me, when you take a year off, what does that look like?
I don't know, man. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I started making videos. I was doing that prior to graduating. I was making videos.
Do you just do the things that are fun for you?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's where I'll explain. So I was making videos, and then people started asking me to make them videos.
Okay.
So I was doing that, and then I realized I don't like making videos that for these random things. You know, I mean, like they were just random. I don't enjoy video making that much, so I was like, okay, maybe I don't want to be a video maker, a cinematographer. Like, there's a certain type of video I want to make, if that makes sense. So then another issue I saw was like people need graphics. So and I was doing that in college for some organization. I was making graphics, so I was like, oh, let's start doing graphics. I started it, and then I was like, same thing. I don't like doing it in these certain contexts. I don't like it that much, and I always related everything to like, bro, I'm not choosing this over medicine. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't like it that much.
Wait, so let me pause you there. So sometimes with like, with some people are looking at it from the business aspect of like, if I do this, I can make money. For you, you're comparing everything back to like the medicine, right?
So
what's what's that motivator?
So the motivator is I've just decided to discover what I like.
Okay.
I've decided to commit to a life.
Okay.
Where it's going to be an expression of my interest.
Okay, good.
And so all these things, as I'm doing them, I'm realizing I'm not that interested.
Okay.
I mean, I like a form of it, but I'm not that interested.
Okay.
So it's not about money, or it wasn't. It wasn't at that point. It wasn't. It was just this very like, I'm not that interested as much as I thought I was when I started.
Self-discovery kind of.
And so, and that's why I meant by always relating it to me, because I was like, I'm not that interested. So anyways, I went into websites, and I did a couple other things. I was like, I'm not that interested. And that became a dilemma on its own, because I was like, bro, I'm not that interested.
Okay.
But then I got this, and this is another thing about being young, is you're so, well, at least for me, I was so bold in just trying things. And that's a privilege, to make that point. That definitely is a privilege, to be bold and to not have to take care of anyone. So I was privileged in that sense. But I started just throwing these like Hail Mary messages on LinkedIn, and I ended up getting this project with Adidas that was really cool. So I did that, and I thought my life was just made in the shade, man. I was like, I'm good. I'm done. Life is good.
I've hit it.
And that, to me, I was interested in. I think applying it to these sorts of like more, because with someone like Adidas, it's more creative. It's not, like a restaurant looking for a menu. That was boring to me. I was like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. But that was more interesting. You can give a message, because they wanted a message. They wanted storytelling. So that was more fun for me. So I did the project, and I thought I was good, and nothing became of it. So,
but when you say it's more creative, it's because you get to come up with an idea.
Yes.
Rather than
you
just
get to come up with an idea.
Okay.
And the expression of that idea is more. There's more room to express.
Okay.
There's only so much like on a let's go back to the example, like a
understand.
menu for a restaurant. There's only so much things you can say. Like what are you gonna say? Like I don't know. That's gonna be goofy.
It's
but
cool.
with this, you can use video, graphics. So that was where this idea of brand and branding became interesting to me, because it's like all of these different disciplines into one output. You know what I mean? Like you have a graphic component, you have a video component, you have just the writing itself, the words you use and the things that are said component. The way you edit it is a whole thing in itself. You can make it dark and moody. You can make it more light and inspiring. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways to communicate. So it was more interesting. like I said, nothing became of it though. But that was the start of like, okay, I like this idea of brand. I want to be involved with brands. And at that same time, it's a long story I don't have to go into, but I had started my own brand basically.
Okay.
And that was like this light bulb moment of, this is all these ways of communicating, and I get to communicate it for something I want to talk about, something I want to communicate about. And but then it became about the money. And then that's when I kind of had to go back. Well, I have to. I'm going to speak present tense.
Yeah.
I have to go back and not think of things so freely. Well, I think when I was young, it was just, it doesn't matter.
Because there's some practical elements.
Yeah, but now there's practical elements, and you have to consider that. And that's when creativity is a lot less, like self-discovery, and there's a lot more traditional things that you might imagine from the outside. Like there is a traditional way to learn how to do things. There are traditional experiences you can gain that will help you build out what you're trying to do.
Right.
So I'm discovering now, or I have been for the last bit of time, that what you thought was not traditional is actually pretty traditional. It's not that non-traditional. In fact, actually, no, I'm not going to say that. But yeah, so I'm learning still. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so what's going on right now? What are you creating? What's the plan for you? Like again, I'm taking you back to the boat.
Man, taking me back to the boat. I'm going to take you to the boat.
What's the plan?
I'll take you to the boat, but I'll answer this question first.
Yeah.
So I started this brand called Hade Alem. So it's a clothing brand taking traditional craft, applying it to contemporary design. The whole idea of it came from my own interest in history and culture, and clothing to me is like a wearable, or can be, not is, can be a wearable, very very visible way of expressing your personal interest and taste.
Okay.
Like
Style.
we dress differently,
Yes.
and the way we dress communicates something different.
Yes.
And so it's been a blessed journey so far. I've learned so much. What started with t-shirts turned into like full production, from fabric to factory, like full on production. And it's been blessed in that sense. The plan over time is to grow and develop that. But what I'm seeing is the plan for now is, there's more to learn that I can learn elsewhere. So trying to learn elsewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's
cool.
where I'm at. Yeah. Ultimately, to make it less vague, I'd like to have my own retail locations.
Okay.
And I'd love to expand our products. Like right now we have cardigans, polos, t-shirts, but I want to do pants and all these other things, and expanding this idea of traditional craft. So right now, hand-woven fabric is the main craft we use. What I learned in Ethiopia, there's not much natural dyeing, for example. So hey, maybe how can we start using natural dyeing and not introducing it, it's there, but making it more accessible. You know what I mean? Embroidery, that's a huge thing with our traditional things. So how can we make that more contemporary and interpret it in the way that I think is easier to dress and style. So that's longer term. Yeah.
So when you're creating, what are you thinking about when you're doing that? Like, what is your purpose with it? What are you trying to do?
Ultimately, I want to have a full production, like manufacturing capacity in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
I think more of like the mission aspect. In most African nations, raw materials are exported and finished goods are re-imported. So like, for example, you might have sunflower seed. Ethiopia is one of the highest exporters of sunflower seed.
I didn't know that.
But Ethiopia is importing sunflower oil. Why? You know what I mean? Or like a lot of the construction going on, it's great and it develops the nation, but many firms, not all, I won't even say a lot, I'll just say many firms are international firms, so it's like local competition is losing to foreign firms. So even when it comes to just fabric, the way it's priced for this hand-woven fabric is similar to the way, and it's compared and bargained for in the same way people are purchasing machine-made fabrics that are imported. Mm-hmm. They can't compete. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much you could do by hand. A machine can spit out like 20 times what you could do with your hand. But when you look elsewhere, things done by hand are valued at a different scale and to a different level. So,
that's actually very true.
But broadly, anyways, not even to get into the whole crafts thing, my belief is that development occurs at the pace of your own capacity. So, like when you look at America's development, it didn't go leaps and bounds. They started with cotton. They developed the Industrial Revolution to process cotton, and then from that, they started making more factories to make the machines that were processing. You know what I mean? They developed at their own, from their own capacity, from their own needs. In that same way, like, hey, working with local companies, keeping, like, to me, I wanted to do knitted sweaters, like knitted sweaters.
Yes.
We don't have knitted factories to make those knitted sweaters. The only knitted factories are in certain parts of the country, and they're these big firms that make stuff for Calvin Klein, Zara. It's not the local. There's no. They have knitted factories for uniforms, but like this more creative stuff that we wear more casually, they don't have it. Or a lot of the fabric I was trying to make wasn't able to be made in a hand-woven way, but it is elsewhere. Or natural dyeing is not a thing. I only found one factory in Addis that would do natural dyeing. It was an Italian factory. So
interesting, yeah.
The point I'm saying is like, I forget the point I'm saying, but the point is to work locally. I made the entire production what was at the capacity of what was there.
Yeah.
I had to change my designs from things that were like not available as I discovered they were not available to things that were available and are available, and just developing that way. And to me, it's kind of like a model of my belief on what economic development looks like. But that's like my personal thing. That's I think when you go about a brand, you have to think about the customer
as well. Yeah.
So not everybody cares about that spiel,
that's
but
cool.
That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, so. That's cool. What's inspiring you right now?
What's inspiring me right now? Faith is inspiring me right now. You gonna keep asking me questions about?
I mean, you're on a podcast.
You're right. Faith is inspiring me right now.
Yeah.
I'll say it like this: a friend of mine convicted me pretty hard. Back to the story, which will relate to this, is, when I was young, it was easy to be bold.
Okay.
You don't think of the consequences. Like, I'll reach out to them. Of course, they'll respond.
Because you don't even know what the consequences are.
You don't know. You don't know. Hey, like, most people get denied.
I
didn't have a concept of denial. Like, I applied to 2 colleges. I got into them. I didn't have a concept of denial. I started getting denied left and right. So it makes you try less and less. And like I said earlier, blaming your parents or, blaming your circumstance, I got into a lot of that. And that stopped a lot of the progress I was making. But at the same time, you have faith, like, oh, I have faith.
God can.
But at the same time, on the other hand, it's like, but can I? God can, but can I?
Yeah.
And so a friend called me out. He's like, you're being double-minded. And you can't be. You can't hold God accountable. Not that we hold God accountable, like, he's our accountability, but meaning you can't have faith in God's word if you're doubting it at the same time. It's incongruent. They don't match. They can't coexist, which sounds really simple, but I just was doing it. And so that's why I say faith inspires me, because since then I've just been trying to, hey, like, if I said I'm going to have faith in you, if I said I'm going to trust you, if I believe that you said, birds don't run after these things and flowers don't run after these things, why are you running after these things?
Yeah.
If I say I'm going to believe in that, I have to believe in that. And so that's something that inspires me. My friends inspire me. I think seeing the change in my friends is an inspiration. Seeing the grit in my friends, people who persevere, inspires me. I think it's easy to be inspired by people who are a bit far away, but when you see it with people up close, it feels more real. Like, hey, like, they're doing it, they're making it shake, and they're making it happen. I'm able to as well.
Yeah.
So those are the two.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, you one of these friends too. Look at you.
I
look where we sitting. Look where we sitting right now. Yeah.
Good try.
Yeah. So I mean, even to that, like, I remember when you were starting this whole thing. I mean, man, you started years ago.
Yes.
And I was talking with you yesterday, like, in my contact for you. Sometimes I write down people's prayer requests in their contact. It's like the easiest way to keep it.
Yeah.
Because I used to do iPhone notes, but I would lose the prayer request.
Yeah.
And I was re-looking at my contact for you, and it was a prayer about the podcast. But back then, it was about testimonies.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what it is in Great Company now. And so even to that, like, how has that journey been? How's your...
Yeah. You know, the fun fact is, I was telling you this yesterday as well. The fun fact... So I think when God gives you an idea... Well, with this one, I'll say with this idea, it was interesting because I remember the moment in time that the idea, like, came alive, or, like, that I thought of it. And I remember, like, even the couple minutes after that, I remember... And I was telling you yesterday as well, like... So this came from a conversation with a friend, right? So I was talking to someone and we were talking about testimonies, and this person wasn't a believer. And in that time, for me, so he had friends that were believers, to the point that he actually was like a groomsman in their wedding and like a really close proximity with them. And I was like, telling him about like Christianity and faith. He was not a believer. He was not a believer, but his friends were believers. Yeah. So I was like telling him, basically we were going back and forth about faith. And in that conversation, I was telling him something about like, my testimony. And he's like, what does that mean? Like, what's a testimony? And it's not that he didn't know what the word was. He didn't understand what I was trying to say. And I said, well, like, you have friends that are believers. You've been a groomsman. Like, because one of the questions I had was like, how did you not accept Christ when you're hanging out with friends which is always so interesting to me, right? Is it them failing to express the gospel in a certain way, or not do their due diligence, or is it that the Lord is still doing a work in your heart, right? Because I think sometimes, I'll speak for myself, and I'm going on a tangent, as Christians, we become too familiar with the people that are familiar with us, and we actually don't share the gospel. Yeah. So
it's harder to share
with people that know you, and also because they're looking at your life and you think, oh, my life is enough to... There's this... We're going on plenty of tangents, but it's okay.
We love them.
There's this one statement that says, say less words, or something along the lines of like, say less, but let your life speak. Or it's basically like, use words of necessary. I think there's something like that. I don't know if I fully agree with that, because the words are unnecessary. You need to express and talk about it. But all this to say, he didn't know what a testimony was. And I said, well, your friends have never shared why they follow Jesus. And he's like, not really. They tell me about the faith. They argue the case, but they don't tell me why they accepted the Lord, and what and how they accepted the Lord, and when they accepted the Lord. And I was like, well, that's the testimony. And then, so I told him, and I said, okay, well, can I share mine with you? And I sat and I shared. And I remember this is a very like, I wouldn't say argumentative, but this is someone that like would go back and forth with me in other conversations. During this time where I'm sharing the testimony, he's like silently listening. Like, he's not even like asking questions. He's just silently listening, to the point I'm like, are you there? Because it's a phone call. And he was like, yeah, I'm listening, keep going. So I shared from like the beginning to the end. And he's like, that's really interesting. Like, it's personal. And I was like, yeah, like faith is personal. And all that to say, I got off the phone. I'm like, we don't share our testimonies. We don't share our stories. And I remember, like, I had that conversation, and I don't remember if it was the next day or whatever. I was driving, to the point that I remember where I was driving, whose house I was going to. And this speaks to who you are, and as a friend in my life. And I was like, I'm going to call Yoni, because Yoni would get it. So I called, and it's like, I do have you in my life, or in my friends group. I've compartmentalized it, and you are that person that I come to with ideas, and when I want to bounce and go back and forth with, like, thoughts, and, like, kind of, like, help me, like, encourage me and sharpen it up and stuff. If I can't put it into words. So anyways, I called you. I remember the street I was in, the way that I was turning. And I remember being like, Yoni, I have an idea. This is what I feel like the Lord wants me to do. And I think it's a podcast. And it's going to be about stories and testimonies in people's lives and God. And this. And you're like, yeah, do it. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. And I just remember being like so excited. I was like, I could do this. This is like, what, 2020? 3 years ago?
2020, 2019, something like that. Yeah.
And then I just remember being so excited about it. And then, like, that excitement died down, because when you get into the practical things of, like, I actually have to...
I started talking to you, need this angle and that, didn't it? I was like,
and it's like, first of all, ain't no way we're doing video. So I got to get equipment. I got to sit down. I got to actually schedule the people. I got to think about this. And it's like, I think I don't want to say it got overwhelming, but I think it kind of just became like, oh, this is a lot. Like I have to actually set aside time to do this. And when you have a busy life and you're doing other things, it's like maybe it's not that the idea was that important. Maybe it wasn't as important because I didn't sacrifice other areas of my life, but I didn't. So it got delayed. Mm-hmm. And then, were you going to say something?
It's okay. You keep going.
Okay, don't forget the thought.
Yeah.
And then there was again, a year, like was it like 6 months passed, and then I had already ran my mouth and told people. So then now they're like, "What about the podcast?" And then it's like, "I'm working on it." And then another year, and then there was like a point where actually we recorded an episode, a couple episodes, and then it didn't follow through. I didn't post it, and then again we recorded some more, and it didn't post. So eventually, I got to the point where I was like, "Okay, this dream is not going away. It's actually becoming more refined. I actually know exactly what I want." The concept of testimonies really didn't, it still is stories, not just conversion stories, but just stories. So that never changed, and it kept coming back and back and back. So for me, it was like, okay, you got to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry. There's
You're
a lot
good.
of thoughts at
You're
once.
good. It's cool.
I think that's a beautiful story because the idea that you start with and the idea that you end at are not the same.
Yeah.
And I think it's an assumption, a false assumption a lot of us make when you start something is like, oh, this is the finished thing. But man, you don't know until you start.
Yeah.
And that's so much more with ideas. Like what you're trying to say is the same thing in essence, but the way and the like specific angle you're taking is different because you've realized that it's a better angle, for different reasons. And so I'm just proud of you for doing it and for sticking through.
Thank you.
And it is overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. I think sometimes you have to count the costs when you start something. And that's the hardest part because, like I said, to bring something to life, there's a lot more traditional steps. It looks untraditional from the outside, but on the inside,
you're right. Yeah.
It's so traditional.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's practical things.
Extremely practical things. Like I'm in this program right now. It's an entrepreneurship program, and I'm like next to people who are starting like very traditional sorts of businesses, like like corporate, like consulting and whatever. I'm sitting next to them, and this information is relevant for all of us, And it's things that I thought, oh, this doesn't apply because this is a creative sort of business, but
it applies.
That it does, and you need it. And so that's just another tangent. But I think you've counted the cost and you're going, and it's beautiful to see. And even this, it's going to develop, you know what I mean? But it only develops the more you do and the more you learn, the more you walk in it. So yeah, God got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard though. There's like moments where like I would like, and it wasn't, the fear was specific because part of it is like, is this worth it? And I think there's parts of it where it's like, if I invest this time, is it worth it? Is it going to actually come to something?
You don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah,
and it's like I'm sitting in this delayed this conversation about myself. Yeah. And then the other aspect is like, what is my why? I remember like that was like a good couple of months of just like, what's my why? What's the reason why I'm doing it? And I think time is important to me. If I'm going to sacrifice time and I'm going to take it away from other things, it has to be meaningful. It has to have purpose. It has to reap. It has to produce fruit, whether it's spiritually or even in the natural, it has to produce fruit. But then I was like, just do it for fun too. That's also another aspect too. So I went back and forth for a while.
Yeah. What's the conclusion you came to?
For the why? Mm-hmm. So for me, one of the things that you said earlier, I was asking about inspiring, right? So people's life very much inspires me. Whether it's me reading a biography or fun fact, I was watching, there was this Netflix series, like the basketball, like, what is it? It was like a 5-part series and it had like Michael Jordan's.
Oh, The Last Dance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm not a big basketball fan. I used to be. I used to watch it.
You said the basketball. It's just basketball.
Did I say the basketball?
No, I don't know.
That's just
Don't
the,
run the clip
foreigner
back.
in me.
Don't hold me to it. Okay.
So when I was watching that, it wasn't the game that I was impressed with, or like it doesn't matter. Actually, to be honest, I've watched a lot of things that are not about the actual like sport. It's the people's lives are just so interesting to me. It could literally be the most random person on the street. For example, people of New York or
humans in New York.
Humans of New York, like their stories are so fascinating to me. And they're regular people on the street that are able to tell their life. And like, if you think about it, a person is born and then they get to like, whatever age that you meet them at, they have experiences, they have stories. And just because they're not like subject matter experts in like a certain topic doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given a platform. To me, I believe everyone has a story, and I am actually fascinated with their stories, and I'm actually interested, especially if they're able to articulate their stories. So for me, with this podcast, it was very important that I believe my friends are great company. I have great conversations with them. I believe that they are interesting people with fascinating stories that need to be told. I want them to be inspired by their own stories and to hear their own stories, but I also want to hear their story. And I believe that other people will be able to hear it. There's themes that are woven through, whether it's attributes of God, whether it's understandings, whether it's their faith, whether it's challenges. There's things that are woven through their stories that are very fascinating. So for me, it's like, I just want to literally hold up a mirror. I want you to hear your life, hear the faithfulness of God, be inspired by your own story, and then also be able to express it to other people. And you may never be on another podcast. I believe you probably will with your brand. But so not everybody may be on a podcast, but to me, it's like, if I give you a platform and I put a mic to you, what are you going to say to the world? And what's your story? And if you can't figure it out, I'm going to help you figure it out so that you can see how valuable it is and see how exciting it is. So I actually believe, like, I truly, like, it's so fun to me to hear people's stories. And I have questions and I'm going to ask them. And it's like, I want to keep pulling at it. So that's really the why. A very long why, but that's my why.
That's beautiful, though. I mean, you don't know who you're sitting next to. Like, even your own parents, the journey and life that they've had.
Yeah.
Not only the journey of life that they had before you were born, but even while you were born, things you're not aware of. It's like you wouldn't have guessed it.
Yeah. And that's a whole different ballgame. Like that generation itself is a whole different conversation of like, I think our generation has a different story because we are in America. And
but we all make decisions, like the life decisions you have to make and the reasons why you made those decisions. That's unique, but it's something that we could all share.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's powerful.
It's like, for me sometimes, and I don't know if everybody agrees, but for me, it's like, if you took away the person's name and you took away like what they've done with their life and where they succeeded, and you still told me their story, it's still fascinating. Yeah. So it's like, if you never said it was Michael Jordan, but you told me about how his life, we think is fascinating because he was the best of his, of his field. But what about the person that was carrying his water, or the person that like his coach, or the person that, he sat next to in high school? Like they have their story too. They just don't have a name and they're not as famous, but like it's important to hear their story too. Yeah.
Giving value.
Yeah,
dignity.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. I do. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun with it. And I'm having
too much fun.
How you feel?
Making people talk.
How you feel?
I feel good.
You feel good? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's very enjoyable for me, and I'm hoping that the audience also and the guests also are enjoying it as well.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
I think it's like if you make space for people to share and be themselves, there's nothing else like that,
Yeah.
And they're not trying to make a point; they're just being.
Yeah.
So it's powerful.
Yeah. So someone said to me recently, I was like right before I started too, and this was my goal for this year, and he said, do it scared. He's like, if it's scary, if you don't know the why with the question marks, just do it. I said, all right, we're going to do it and see what happens. So it's getting easier and better and more fun. So I'm enjoying it.
It's just the beginning.
This is the beginning. We'll see what happens.
Amen.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna wrap up, but I want to hear a little bit more about, so you're a believer, you've been doing a lot of work, and developing things and working and trying to figure it out. I have 2 questions for you. One of them is going to be a little scary. I'm going to warn you. Do you think you're walking in your purpose? Like right now?
Do
I
think
warned
I'm
you.
walking in my purpose? I'm trying to.
Okay, that's a good answer.
You know what? I'm trying to.
That's good.
I'm genuinely trying to. I was talking to this is the most random conversation that ever happened in my life.
Okay.
It was Easter. I went to this market in Georgetown Sunday, and I'm walking, and it's like a group of people see me and say, Jesus!
Oh, I didn't even think about it. Does that happen to you?
Yeah.
Often?
No, yeah, it does.
Just during the month of Easter? Or
No, year round.
all the time?
Year round. Yeah.
Like they
Yeah,
just yell it out
year
loud?
round. No, not out loud, but they'll be like, you could be the Black Jesus. Or people will be like, you're
so
the real,
funny.
you look like the real Jesus. And I'm like, hey.
So you don't even need to wear a shirt that says like Jesus. It's already coming up for you.
It's a conversation.
That's crazy.
It's an icebreaker. But nah, so I walk up to them and I said, yeah, what's up? And then we start talking. They're Muslim.
Okay.
They're all Muslim. And we start talking. Egyptian dude, Afghani girl, and then this random guy, he's Thai. He wasn't Muslim, but
okay.
he was just there.
Yeah.
And so we started talking literally 2 hours. And then
wow. That sounds like a theme for you.
In the end, one of them had asked me, like, what do you want your life to be about? And I said, I want it to be visible that I let God lead my life.
Oh, that's
like
so good.
I wanted it to be visible. And then we talked about that for a little bit. And so to answer your question, I'm trying. And I think it's hard to know if you ever are because it's a daily walk, you know, and there's so much mixed in. Like there's your own interests, your own desires, your own fears and worries mixed in. And just sometimes even a conversation I have with myself is like, God tells us to be wise, which means we have to take ownership, but God tells us to be meek and, you know, which calls for surrender.
Yeah.
So how can you have ownership and surrender at the same time?
Have courage and
a lot of the
yeah.
times I just lean on the surrender side, but I'm always clinging to the ownership side,
yeah.
and I'm just stuck in the middle. Like,
that's so good.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know which one to grab.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but that's why I'm saying, like, it's hard to know. That's why I can't say yes, but I'm trying.
That's good.
So,
and I think it's a very complicated question. That's why I was like, it's hard because there's a daily purpose. Like there's a day to day. Like I prayed, I was in the Word, I was daily disciples.
You talking?
Disciplines.
You make a disciples t-shirt.
Lord help me. You know, there's a daily aspect to it, and then there's an overall purpose too, and then it's like the producing of fruit. And so I think it's not. And I asked you, look, he's a test or whatever, but it's like when you ask that question, it's like, yeah, but also there's things that he's still changing, and tomorrow's going to look different from today. And the purpose that I understand based on my knowledge today, I can say yes, or based on my knowledge today, I'm trying. But tomorrow he can reveal a completely different thing, and not even reveal something new. He can even just give me revelation on what he's been doing and completely change my thought process.
Amen.
So
that open hand.
Yeah.
Open hand.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much. Okay.
Amen.
You said, you know, you want to live your life being visible, showing that God is leading you visibly, right?
Yeah.
So what attributes of God do you think your life already is visible? Like when you're thinking about the attributes of God, if I was to see your life, what do you think your life is saying to other people?
What do I think it's saying about God?
What is it saying about God? There you go. English is my second language. Just for the record. It doesn't matter how old I was when I came.
No. Even the president messes up.
He better,
He ain't got no other language.
That's right.
Just English.
Don't compare me to him, please.
No.
Wait, which president? Depends. Which president?
All of them, man.
Oh, that's true.
Trump, Biden, they all messed up.
Let's leave that one alone.
Didn't slip up too much with the English. But
all right, go back to your question. Focus.
Putting me in timeout.
Attributes.
Yeah. No, I know. I was thinking about it. I would say that God is a God of truth. I think I end up in a lot of conversations with a lot of people who have some strong opinions, not pro God, or another God, or just not pro God.
Yeah.
And I think I'm always very slow to speak because, God is a God of truth, which means he's true in all circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Even the circumstances that seem like gray area, it's not gray area.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're discussing with somebody, if you don't know, I want to be slow to speak. Like Job's friends, I don't want to be one of them. That's just like,
I know.
This is why. And then, like 1
They're
month
wrong.
later, it's like, you just burn somebody's faith,
Yeah.
or lack of faith. You just entrench them further on the other side. So I think, if anything, and not even just in those circumstances, but I've just always like wanted to be in a truth.
Yeah.
And so I would just say like, I think if anything, people could say the God that Yoni believed in is true. Or if they don't believe in God, they don't doubt that I'm living in a way that is true to me.
That's good.
And I hope that God uses that for them to not only see it's just true to me, it's true for everybody, but I think God's truth is a big one. Maybe I'll think of another, but I don't want to take too much time.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. There's an authenticity there, right? He is not changing, and you're sticking to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm completely comfortable saying I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I know God to be true here.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like if it's true here, you have to leave it that he can be true everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's just the element that God's higher, and I'm not going to understand it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think yeah.
That's good.
Anyways.
Well, listen, I had a great time hanging out with you. I know we can keep going.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm thinking about as we're ending is your story's still unfolding. You're still learning. And like you said, like there's even the humility to say, I don't know. I'm still figuring this out.
Yeah.
Even the past or the future is a great heart posture to have. And you're an encourager, and you're kind with your words, and you do listen, and which is what makes you great company. And I've appreciated this. And in some ways, this podcast is a fruit of your encouragement, so I do thank you. And
God bless
this
you.
audience, but thank you too, because now they get to listen.
Come
but
on, now. Pay your dues, pay your respect.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely. So I'm glad to have you here. You're a great company.
God bless. Thank you for having me. This was it's amazing, and it's beautiful to see.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm excited to see everything that comes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.